We're going to reconvene the meeting of June 3rd, 2013. As with each meeting, we'd like to introduce you to a vet that's served in the country, for our country. And tonight we're going to introduce Marty Richmond, who was a Chief Warrant Officer for U.S. Army, retired 22 years, 1961 through 1983. And Marty, if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Richmond, for serving our country and all you've done. Let's move on to roll call.
Councilmember Valdivia.
Here.
Mayor Velasquez.
Here.
Councilmember Scatini.
Here.
Councilmember Gomez.
Present.
City Manager Quilter. City Attorney Atig. And Chief of Police Reynoso.
Here.
Thank you.
Verification of posting, agenda posting.
The agenda for the City Council meeting of June 3rd, 2013 was posted on the bulletin board at City Hall on May 30th, 2013 at 2:11 p.m. per Government Code Section 549 by 4.2.
Thank you very much. Let's move forward with a presentation from the City of Hollister Police Department.
Paul, if you can come up here, please. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to present this to Paul De Silva. Paul De Silva started as an IT person here in Hollister several years ago. He has worked diligently to maintain the requirements the city demanded of him. He deals with issues in a professional, where are you? Quickly and without hesitation to assist us all. His work requires him to be on call 24/7 for emergencies for the entire city. The city recognized his accomplishments several years ago, and he became the IT manager. And he continues to show as a true asset to the city by thinking outside the box and saving the city money whenever and wherever possible. Technology has always been a force multiplier for the police department. As you know, with a department that's understaffed, anytime you can use technology to help you be more efficient, we need to take advantage of that. Hollister Police Department is one of the first in the region to have a laptop issued to each officer. This is several years ago. And what that did is allowed officers to complete their reports faster and get back on the street. Paul was instrumental in maintaining that equipment. As a matter of fact, a lot of these laptops that are currently used right now are former police laptops, and they're several years old, still working strong, and it's thanks to Paul and Eric doing that work for us. Around later on, after we got our computers, Paul set up a wireless system throughout the city, and that allowed us to even be more efficient. Our officers can write reports in the field, send the reports wirelessly, attach narratives, pictures, recordings, and this is all Paul's help by doing this. And I get asked a whole bunch of times, you know, why is there always an officer in the Target parking lot, just parked there, or over by Sally Street near the fire station? And the answer is those wireless antennas are very nearby, and they have a strong signal there. And they're sitting there writing their reports and submitting them, and they can be there in public view instead of heading all the way back to the police department. So it's a more efficient use of our time. Now, recently, a couple years ago, we had the opportunity to join in with another agency to get mobile terminals, computers in our cars that can actually dispatch us. The problem with that was in order for the Hollister to join in with this plan, it would be about $300,000 to do that. Obviously, it's a lot of money. But Paul worked with us, and he figured, and we all figured, that there's a better way to doing that, and he did do that. He worked diligently to get a system together. We got our MDCs. We got the system, the software, everything for around $50,000. And that's what that, by the way, we had a $44,000 technology grant. So we took advantage of that grant, and with $50,000, and it was all Paul's work and hard work to get that done. We've been using them for several months now. Everything's working really good, and it's a testament to Paul, his hard work, that we have these systems. Now, in addition to that, I mean, there's more. Most police departments have their MDCs in their cars and their vehicles, and they're around $5,000. Now, Paul looked at that and said, that computer has nothing special. I mean, sure, it's heavy duty, and you can run it over with the car if you wanted to, and it would still work, but how about we don't run it over with the car and get just a regular laptop? He has a system in our vehicles that run roughly around $1,500 compared to $5,000 or more in other agencies. So this is just Paul working together with us day after day, looking at ways to make things better and more efficient. And on top of all that, he doesn't just work on the laptops or MDCs. He works on our desktop computers, our servers, our backups, not just for the police department, but for the whole city. So he's one of the hardest working employees in the city. And as I was talking to Captain Westrick a couple months ago, we should do something to honor him, recognize the hard work he does. And an interesting thing happened. As more and more of our staff found out what we were up to, they all asked to participate. Hey, can I contribute to this? Can I contribute to this? So I'm about to present a plaque to Paul, and I want to make sure you understand no city funds were used for this. This is all city police department personnel that wanted to contribute to this. So I'd like to present this plaque, if I may read it, to Paul De Silva, IT Manager, City of Hollister, in recognition of your continual support of major operations and your partnership in technologically advancing the Hollister Police Department. So. And I know you have a speech already.
I really don't, because I didn't even expect to even be here tonight. But again, thank you, Police Department, Council, City Manager, City Attorney, all city staff, just doing my job and doing what needs to happen to make sure everything's running. I know Stephanie's got a problem right now. She's waiting for me to handle it. I just want to say I appreciate it and thank you very much. And
Why don't you turn that plaque around so we can see it?
So we can see it. We'd like to see the plaque. Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Nice.
Again, thank you. I don't want to take any more time.
Thank you very much. He's a good guy. Very good. Let's move on to item A, the consent agenda resolution.
Motion to approve consent.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Motion to approve warrant registers.
Let me get there. Hang on a second there. Item B. Go ahead, Victor.
Motion to approve warrant registers, item B1.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Move on to item C, public input. This is the time for anyone in the audience to speak on any item not on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. When the city clerk calls your name, please come to the podium, state your name and city for the record, and speak to the city council. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Please note that state law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking action on any item not on the agenda. Are there any speakers?
Marty Richmond?
Marty Richmond, Hollister, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I just want to take a moment to thank you for your, and members of the staff of the city. I'd like to take a moment to thank you for your continued support of the veterans, both the old veterans, I'm in the old veteran group, and the younger veterans. And I would like to come up here today and just remind the council and remind the citizens of Hollister that while things are winding down worldwide, we still have tens of thousands of troops deployed, far from their homes, and their loved ones in Afghanistan. So we still have troops in Iraq. We have troops in Korea, all over the world. And we had this enormous outpouring of appreciation after 9/11 for the troops, and that was well deserved. But you know, Americans, unfortunately, we're pretty good folks, but one of our bad things is we kind of get bored in the long run and kind of forget about things, and it's easy to do. So I just want to remind people that the troops are still out there. Many of them are still far from home, and they always appreciate the packages you sent them. They always appreciate the letters, and when you run into them at the airport, they always appreciate you saying thanks for a job well done. So I hope you will not forget they're out there, as fewer and fewer Americans serve our nation because of the way technology works. We no longer have enormous manpower in the military. They have less manpower, but they have to work much longer hours. They're away from home a lot more than they used to be. So thank you for your time, and I hope the community remembers these folks.
Thank you very much. No other speakers?
No.
Let's move on to item D1, update on the 2013 Hollister Motorcycle Rally.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Just a quick update. Here we go. Picked up a new sponsor this week, Enjoy Electronic Cigarettes. $5,000 sponsor. Want to come in and educate everybody to the safety aspects of not smoking, but they still want you to smoke, you know. But,
Just electronically now, right?
electronically, you know, can't. And also another sponsor we're talking to this week is a company that's doing the DVD release for Oblivion, which is a Tom Cruise movie. I guess he rides a motorcycle in the movie. So they're coming in as a sponsor, and we just got to work out the details there. But we're not getting Tom Cruise, but we are getting some of their money, hopefully. Yeah. So there's the sponsors. Vendors, we've been signing up vendors. It's been slow, but they're just starting to really wake up to the fact now. So and get their deposits in and their full payments. We signed up BMW motorcycles this week to come with a display. So we'll be doing some press releases shortly about that. That'll be a nice looking display. Basically, 6th Street, we've got some bike games going on at the end of 6th Street. And we're also going to be doing a roller derby demo there. And this week we also signed the Hollister Freewheelers, which is just the wheelchair soccer team. So I know it's not motorcycle stuff, but it's kind of interesting stuff to demos, just to take a look at some stuff going on. That we could class under entertainment. We've got all the bands on the main stage booked, and there the pictures are up on the website. And on the website is also the first 30 or so vendors are all listed on the website with the map of where they're going and stuff like that. In the last couple of weeks, we've got some commitments from media. So KPIG Radio, which is classic stuff, I think, from Monterey, is going to be coming out here and doing some satellite freedom. Okay. All right. And the Hippo as well. You know the Hippo? Okay.
What's on your radio dial,
KPIG and the Hippo are two different radio stations that are classic rock, that kind of stuff, the kind of music that we're going to be playing here at the rally. They're both bringing their crews out. Also, ESPN Radio from Santa Cruz is coming out with their crew. And now we've just picked up a second National Geographic film crew that are following one of the bands that we've got booked here, the Charlie Brechtel Band, which is playing on Friday night. So now we've got two National Geographic crews coming to film during the rally. So we should have plenty of media. That's basically the end of the update. All right.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Any questions?
That looks
No.
good.
All right.
Any speakers? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on now to item D2.
Harry's going to go ahead and start us off. Or Harry's going to go ahead and start us off.
Do we have a clicker? I hope so. Yeah. There it comes. And then that little clicker should be there somewhere. If not, you can just give me the. If not, you can just give me the. There we go. Thank you. Here it comes. Wait a minute. All right, so thank you, Mayor Velasquez and council members. Tonight, we're going to concentrate on the rate presentation, and so there will be no general update that I normally give to you, other than I will say that the water supply and treatment agreement that we've been talking about for the last several months has been approved by the San Benito County Water District, and so it'll be coming to you next. And that's a huge milestone. It took a lot of effort on the part of all of the managers and the governance committee to wade through that, and we're very pleased that it's moving forward. So I'm going to start out. We're going to do a tag team approach, and I'm going to give a little background tonight on the benefits of the proposed water treatment plant that we've been talking to you about for years. And this first slide talks about the essentials, and the 5 bullets that are shown there are not just the ones that the staff created as points, but rather this came as from the very beginning in 2005 when we began public hearings on our master plan. And I know that certainly Council Member Scatini and Council Member Valdivia remember we had public hearings, and we had 35 to 40 people at each of those hearings, and to a person, this is what they wanted to see. And I'd like to call your attention to the first one, which is a better quality drinking water. That's paramount in everyone's mind. And the last one is that what we want is local control to meet the regulations. We don't want to lose control. We want it to be local and under the direction of the people in the urban area and in San Benito County. There are specific projects, and you've heard them before. What we want to do is maximize the use of our available water supply. And this includes the Central Valley Project water that we call the San Felipe Project. It's blue valve water. And we have the General Manager of San Benito County Water District in the audience tonight. I'm sure he'd be pleased to answer questions if you have any on reliability. But we're going to maximize the use of available water supply. And again, the people said we don't want the water leaving our borders. The projects are the less salt water treatment plant upgrades, a dedicated pipeline to the high zone. The high zone is traditionally has not received the benefits of the less salt and the blue valve water. West Hills, that's the new plant that will be over in the area that the city and Sunny Slope currently own, and it overlooks Riverside Drive, so it's in a very high location. And the pipelines to serve Central Hollister, and then environmental mitigation, and I've reported to you many times that we have to deal with our friends, the California tiger salamander, and a few other critters. And lastly, the additional city upgrades, which are the improvements to the downtown water main in San Benito Street. There are regulatory requirements, and these are bullets that you can't dodge. And what this means is that there's disinfection byproducts that result from the use of disinfectors like chlorine coming in contact with organic materials like algae and other organics that come in from our water supplies. And the products are they call them DBPs, disinfection byproducts, but they are potential carcinogens. And I know that a council member of Aldavia said, well, if we knew about these, why weren't they included in the less salt design in the first place in 2002? Well, the short answer is they weren't well understood 11 or 12 years ago. We can measure them now, and the state has promulgated regulations that we must comply with. So your less salt plant must be upgraded to deal with DBPs. The less salt water treatment process must be upgraded to meet the rule by the end of 2013. We will not finish that upgrade by the 2013, but it's under the control of the California Department of Public Health. We've had numerous conversations with them, and they say as long as your plant is under construction, then that requirement for the 2013 will be relaxed. Then on the wastewater side, the wastewater discharge requirements, WDRs, mandate a reduction in salinity to the wastewater to protect the groundwater basin. And these must be met by January 2015. And so both of the Sunny Slope and the city will have to meet those regulations by 2015. If you don't, you're going to be subject to perhaps a moratorium, perhaps fines. My finger is not doing so well. Got it, moved. The direct benefits are you'll have water delivered that has less salt in it. And the reason for that is so your groundwater, our groundwater, the one that I drink, has about 700 to 1,000 parts per million, milligrams per liter of dissolved solids. That affects taste and it affects hardness. And what we're trying to do is achieve a much lower hardness and a much lower total dissolved solid. And to give you an idea of what's going on, we have water softeners. There's 2,700 water softeners in the urban area. Now, these statistics have come from the Water Resources Association and Sean Novak, whom you all know. And a lot of people will say, well, that seems a little on the low side. But be that as it may, say it's 2,700 water softeners, and each uses 2 bags of salt each month. That results in 216,000 pounds of salt going through your wastewater treatment plant and into the groundwater basin. This is not a smart thing for any of us to continue to do. A cost for a bag of salt is $4 to $5. That's what I pay. Cost for water softeners range, as it says, they're $450 to about $2,000. Their cost for maintenance, that's not included. There's a longer appliance life. A dishwasher will last with soft water probably 4 or 5 years longer, and that's a cost savings. And then there's no need to buy expensive bottled water. In order to have decent tasting coffee, I buy 2.5 gallons of water per week. It costs me $10 a month. Some people will buy more. Larger family would buy a lot more than that. So this is a table, and these are not absolute numbers. This is a range. But the point here is to give you an idea of what the dollar benefits are depending on how much water you use, or do you have a water softener or not, But the range is shown there. And it's 38 to 93. Well, in fact, I did a calculation for my own home, and I'd be much closer to $30, not 38. But nevertheless, when somebody says that your water bill is going to go up, it's clearly offset by these savings. But the last bullet is particularly interesting to all of us. It will avoid potential future fines. Now, we have other data that shows the fines could be very, very large, but rather than speculate, we just are using the city of San Juan as an example. We received these data, and that's $116,000 in fines because the salinity exceeds the wastewater discharge rules. And that's about, in round terms, it's about $40,000, $38,000 per year over the 3-year period. There's about 700 connections. I don't know the exact number, but about 700 connections for the water in San Juan. And that means that for every connection, that's $55 a year. You have about 5,500 connections. So $55 times 5,500 would mean that you're looking at over $300,000 per year in fines, and you get zero benefit from that. It's just a fine. Affordability was a key consideration. I presented to you last 2 weeks ago, at your last meeting, on the same issue. One of the points that I think is worth looking at here is that our water treatment plant, O&M, we took a look when we selected the site and when we selected the process of the total costs, which means that we included the cost of the capital, we included the cost of the water, and we included the cost of operation and maintenance. And that's power and people and chemicals and everything. And it's about one-third, one-third, one-third for water, capital, and O&M. And what we made a presentation to you, I think, twice, and said the site that we have selected over at West Hills is in an ideal location because you only have to pump the water once. You get it up there, and then you don't even have to pump it all the time every year because of the pressure that's in the Hollister conduit. And once you get it up there, it's gravity fed throughout the system. And we all know that power costs are going up. So that location is ideal. We're being efficient by using the existing staff at Sunny Slope County Water District to operate both facilities. We took a look at the total life cycle cost from cradle to grave, we say, and we picked the lowest total cost option, both for location and process. So it'll only go down, these costs will only go down in the future because as the size of the plant increases, then we have an economy of scale. You use the same operators. The only thing that goes up is the cost of chemicals. Local financing. Clint reminded me that local financing is critical here. The water district is financing the project and contributing $10 million to the cost. This means that the local dollars don't leave the community. You're not investing outside the community, they're investing in the community, and you have a window of opportunity to take advantage of that. I'll get there. Whoops, too far. Oops. I'm coming to my end, and I lost it. Okay, the program is, oops. Oh, the program, back one more. One more back. There we go. All right, those are the 4 bullets that you saw, 5 bullets that you saw at the very beginning. But take a look at our water basin. For all intents and purposes, it's a closed basin. It holds 500,000 acre-feet of water, and it's essential to have this. It's our ultimate backstop for water supply. When other people are suffering from droughts, we draw on our groundwater. And if we contaminate it, shame on us. So what this says is it's a closed basin. There's a lip out towards Chittenden Gap, and very little water escapes. And so all of the salts that you put into the groundwater, for all intents and purposes, stay. There we go. All right, in summary, the program is essential. We've got to protect our resources. It's logical, and remember, it's mandated by the state. Everybody has pointed out we have to provide good quality and reliable water. A do-nothing approach likely lead to fines and perhaps a moratorium. And supporting the project supports the future. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the Raftelis people, Sanjay, and he will expand more on the rates. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now or later in the program.
Yeah, anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question, Harry.
Yes.
You might want to explain the doubling the fine, doubling the amount of money that we have to pay for water compared to the sewer and the...
Yes, that's a very good point. And that'll come up in Sanjay's presentation.
Okay.
That the cost that we're talking about here tonight is the cost of your water, not the total bill that you receive, which is a combination of sewer and water. I think that's what you're referring to.
Right.
So this means that, and I know that Council Member Gomez would, to be clear on this as well, that the bill that you receive is combined, sewer and water. And so your sewer component is much, much larger than your water component. So as the water component goes up, it is still not going to double the cost of your bill, for example. It will only increase the component that is dedicated or reserved for water. I think that's the
Right, and that's important to the people out there in TV land.
Yes.
Can I ask, you said as the system grows, the costs are going to go down.
Yes.
What exactly are we talking about as far as growth?
Well, the projection that we made was to provide expandable capacity to 9,000 MGD, which takes us out beyond 2023. And the West Hills plant now is at 4,500, but it's 4,500 MGD. That's million gallons per day. 4.5. And it could double and still remain on the site. The plumbing would be in place, but the cost per unit of water treated, because of it's the way we distribute the costs per unit, the cost per unit of water treated will go down. Not the grand total cost, just the cost per unit treated water. Yeah, it's 4.5 MGD. And as I think I mentioned last week, that, or 2 weeks ago, that when we did the analysis, we wanted to make sure that we are not overbuilding in any way. And so the proposed new water treatment plant is going to be 4.5 and can be expanded in modules up to double that, 9 MGD.
But the proposed system now, up to, what kind of growth can it hold now with the proposed system?
The current facility can accommodate a modest amount of growth. We went through with your staff, both at Sunny Slope and for the city, and looked at the proposed developments that were coming, and we can accommodate the proposed developments that we had knew were on the horizon, and of course they don't come on instantly. They're built out at a rate. We included that in the analysis, and so that's good for the projected growth that we know of through about 2018 to 2020.
Okay. How, if we do build a system, we talked about the water softeners and the problem with the water
Yes.
softeners. How are we going to stop the use of softeners? I can't see.
Well, there are the Water Resources Association is working on that issue with Sunny Slope and the city, and we're proposing, and the master plan actually included this, a water softener ordinance. Now, we can't go in and have everybody take out their water softeners instantly, but the proposal would be to convince people through an education type process to reduce the use, make better use of the efficiency that they probably already have, but maybe over salting. And then lastly, one of the things that other communities have done, like Santa Clarita, have said that any time a house is sold or a new development starts, that there would be provision for no water softeners or very high-tech water softeners to reduce the salt load. But that would not happen instantly. It would be phased in over time. And Santa Clarita is, you can go online, that's one of the front runners in this approach.
Thank you. Any other questions? No?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I do have here a proposed draft of a notice. So if anybody has questions after Sanjay speaks, I have a proposed draft.
Well, actually, yeah, it's an administrative draft that we'll be getting out to you in the next, sometime this week,
Yes.
of the actual 218 notice.
So we've progressed to that point. Thanks.
Honorary Mayor, City Council, staff, and citizens of Hollister, I'd like to present the rate discussion associated with water rates. As mentioned, I'm specifically talking about water rates. I'm not talking about sewer rates, so we're just focusing on that area of your bill. Now I'm having the same challenges here. Let's see if I can figure this out. There we go. So the agenda for today is to talk about the overview of what we talked about last time, talk about the current rate structure that you have, justification for the rates, the new and proposed rates, how we're justifying these new rates, the proposed rates, and whenever we look at new rates, it's also very important to understand what are the impacts to your customers. So what we have is something we call a usage impact, where we look at different usage levels and see how the change in the bill, how much will the bill increase by a dollar amount, by percentage terms. And then we also have something called customer impact, where we're looking at how many customers will see a $2 increase in the bill, how many will see a $5 increase. So as discussed last time I met with you, there's three parts associated with doing a rate study. There's a financial plan, there's a cost of service, and there's a rate design. When we met last time, we talked about the financial plan, which is basically how much revenue we need to generate to meet our obligations, to pay for our O&M operating costs, to pay for our capital improvement costs, to pay for the San Benito cost that's coming online, and the financing associated with it in the different scenarios or options we have. So we presented to you last time 3 different scenarios. Based on input that we received and based on our recommendation, we're proceeding with scenario 2, which basically is a 13% increase in revenues. You could think about it as rates, but I would caution you there because we're proposing to change the rate structure. So some customers will see a difference in that increase, and I'll show you that in a second. But we're proposing a 13% increase in revenue over 5 years. Basically, we would be using a lower debt payment, and we would be using the water line. Now, the second part of now what I'm going to be talking about in my presentation is the second part of the rate study, which is the cost of service and the rate structure. And of course, interrupt me anytime during my presentation if I'm not clear. So it's important when we go into rate structure and rate design to understand what our current rates are. Water rates usually have two components associated with it. There's a fixed component and a commodity component. Over here, where it says meter sizes, you see your fixed component. This is a fixed cost you pay regardless of if you use no water, you pay this amount. In some sense, this reflects the readiness to serve charge. Water is a highly capital-intensive product. It's actually one of the most capital-intensive products there is. And this is the ability to use water 24/7 any day. Even if you don't use it, you have the ability to turn it on and have water. Now, if you notice, that charge is $4.50 for a 5/8 inch meter. That's your and 3/4 inch meter. That is your typical residential customer for single family. It is extremely low. I can say that as an expert in this field. I do a lot of these studies. I actually written recently an article in a journal that did surveys across the state of California, and 450 is the lowest we've seen. Now, one thing you also notice is the meter sizes. As you see, as they get bigger, the charge gets bigger. That reflects the ability of a meter to use more water. That inch is how much water can flow through. So bigger the pipe, more water I can use or access instantaneously. So that's the ability to use more of the system. So larger meters, of course, should be paying more. And that proportionality reflects the hydrological capacity of those meters. So we have an inside and outside rate. Besides the fixed component, there's also a commodity component. The commodity is what you pay as you use different usage, different units. The units we call as HCF. I'll just call it billing units for today's discussion, but there's 100 cubic feet. So in the billing units, you have 0 to 30 for single family is charged 1 unit. 31 to 50 is another, and 51 and above. Then you see also multifamily has a similar tiered rate structure in the extent that this goes from 0 to 100, then to 101 to 150, and 150 and above. You also see commercial and institution has something similar. Industrial have a 2-tiered rate structure, and landscape irrigation has a 2-tiered rate structure.
This per month?
This is per month, these tiered block widths. Mm-hmm.
Per unit?
This is per unit, yeah. So if I used 10 units, you go 10 times 246, and then you plus the fixed charge. Okay? So one of the discussion items that we had last time we met was, what's the goal and objectives of the rate structure? What do we want to achieve with these rates? What we determined is that we want to, as much as possible within the legal framework, have affordability for essential use. Essential use is specifically health and safety. It's indoor water use. We also want to promote conservation. We know water is a limited resource, and we want to be a good stewardship to make sure water is available for future generations. We also want to make sure we maintain revenue stability. So the question is, how do we achieve all three of those? Now, besides achieving those three things, it's important to make sure the rates meet the legal requirements. So there are some framework or some rules that we need to follow. We can't just make up stuff. And the key thing is water rates cannot be arbitrary and capricious. There has to be a rationality or a nexus behind the rates. We have to look at the cost associated with providing water services and develop a tiered rate or pricing rates that reflect those costs. And that's the cost of service analysis I was talking about in the second part of the 3-part process. In addition, there's a burden of proof because of Proposition 218. We need to have a document, which we'll be providing you shortly based on today's input, that reflects the cost drivers associated with the rates so that customers and your citizens in your community can have access to that and read it and understand how the rates are developed. So what's the rationality for the rates? Based on our understanding of your system, what we looked at is we have customer information, we have the billing system, we know how much water people use, we actually have that information. We looked at, well, what's the average indoor use? And that average indoor use reflects that essential use, that health and safety that I've been talking about. So what we want to do is tie that to Tier 1. One of the beautiful things about that, and as you can see, I get passionate about it, so I use the word beautiful, is the price reflects the cost of the base cost of delivery. It's basically, if we had a system just designed for winter average use, we develop a rate associated with that. The second component is the outdoor water use. Because we know how much people use average in the winter time, right, which reflects indoor water use. So in the summertime, that's the outdoor water. That's the incremental, additional. That's based on the summer average use. Now we can put the additional cost associated with providing water during the summer, which in my terminology calls the peaking cost of capital. It's that additional cost that we need to be able to provide. Once people go over that, then they go into the what we would call peak day delivery, which is the highest amount of water, hottest day in the summer, that we have water available plus fire. And that's how your system is designed for. So that's that additional cost to have that is reflected in Tier 3. So based on that information and based on our analysis, we come with this rate structure for single family. First thing to note is that the proposed rate for Tier 1 drops. It is currently $246. It drops to $207. Second thing to note is that Tier 2 and 3 does jump up. It goes from $340 to, we're proposing, where it's currently $246. And then for Tier 3, it jumps up to $389. Now, another thing that we're also changing, I just want to make sure we understand, is we're also changing the block width. Originally, your Tier 1 is 0 to 30. Now we're changing that to 0 to 9. So I know there's a couple of moving parts here, and there's going to be one more moving part. And I'm going to eventually show you the most important thing, which is the customer impact, and finally, what is the change in the bill. But I just want to make sure we understand the big picture of all the different moving parts. So we are changing the block widths from 0 to 9. That reflects the average winter use. That's enough water for a family of 4 to use. 10 to 15 is basically the increment of the average summer use. That's the additional water use people are using for outdoor irrigation to irrigate their lawns in the summertime. And then 15 above is what we would consider above average. For the other customer class, what we're recommending is a uniform rate structure, and that's mainly because of the diversity of the meter size and some concerns that we had with equity. That would resolve that by just having a simple high-tiered rate that promotes conservation and addresses some of the equity concerns. In addition, we also evaluated your fixed charge. As I mentioned, your fixed charge is the lowest I've seen at $4.50. What we're recommending is to increase that. So the reason why we're increasing this is to achieve revenue stability. So we've done a couple of things here. We've increased the fixed charge. So that's regardless of if you don't use any water, that's your charge. That will go up. That increases revenue stability. We lowered Tier 1 for affordability, for essential use, so that customers who don't use that much water will see a benefit. They can control their bill. Also, the higher tiers are much more expensive to promote conservation. So how does this all add up together to the customer? So let's understand that. So what we have right here is for a single-family customer that uses a 5/8 meter, which is your typical meter size. Right down the bottom, you see the 8, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. That's that billing unit that I've been talking about, the different amount of water use. So you can think about yourself if you know how much water you use. The average customer in Hollister uses around 12, just for the whole year. In the summertime, they use more like 8 or 9. In the winter, in the wintertime, sorry about this, they use more like 8 or 9. In the summertime, they use more like 15. But the average customer uses 12 throughout the whole year. We see the current bill, we see the proposed bill, we see the change in the bill, and we see the percentage increase. So remember, what we've been talking about is a 13% increase in revenue, or one way of looking at it, you could just do a 13% increase across the board. In this case, as you'll notice, individuals who are using water for health and safety or essential use, or who are within the 9 units, will actually only see a modest increase of basically $1 or 4%. Individuals who want to use water for outdoor water use, for irrigation purpose, will see a much more increase than that. So this rate structure achieves the goal of having a water available for affordability. It also achieves the goal of promoting conservation, and by increasing the fixed charge, we're also increasing revenue stability. So it's a combination of aligning all 3 goals. Please. Correct. This is the total bill that the individual will see. So when someone has a bill, of course the bill includes a sewer component and a water component. This is just the water component, and that increase. So this is what they would see as an increase in their total bill. Just, for instance, if someone used 10 units, they would just see a $1 increase. Excuse me. also what we've done is we've looked at the number of changes in bills. This is what we call the customer impact. So since we have all your information, the billing system, we process it, we can calculate what the new bill will be under the current new proposed rates. So what this shows is that you see the $0 to $2 and you see 32%. This says basically 32% of your bills or customers, you can think of as customers, will see no more than a $2 increase in their bill. You can see that the majority of your customers are between $2 and $5, 43%. So you can also add these two numbers together, the 32 and the 43, which gives you around 75%. And we can say that 75% of your customers will see no more than a $5 increase in their bill. Also with multifamily, we looked at that, and we looked at the number of units associated with it to determine that basically the average multifamily will see only a $1.62 increase in their bill by units.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So if family has a bill of, let's say, $40 right now. So according to this, it will increase only with 162.
If a family has a bill of 40,
Let's say $40 just to.
yeah, so let's just say 41.40 because that's what I have right there. So they would see a $5.80 increase in their bill.
$5.80.
Yeah, $5.78. Yeah. So these would be the proposed rates from fiscal year 14 to 19. These would be effective January 1st. What we would do is we would do this shift in the rates that I've just been talking about, implement them January 14. Then after that, we would do a 13% increase each year, except for fiscal year 19. Fiscal year 19 will have the same rates as you notice as 18. So this would cover the cost associated with the expansion associated with San Benito. It would also meet the reserve targets and obligations associated with the loan. Besides that, we also, we have the tiered rate structure. So again, the same thing would happen. The new rate structure will be implemented in January 1st of 2014. Then after that, we would have a 13% increase in each of these. Now, it's also important, it's similar to what we've experienced on the sewer side. These are what we would suggest you adopt. However, as you go through this process and you get the San Benito's costs and you absorb them, and hopefully you can beat those costs, you may be able to implement a lower rate. So there's adoption and there's implementation. They're two different things. So this is what you adopt. We would hope that you could implement something lower, and that's what you did on the sewer rates. Is there any questions I may answer?
Any questions from the council?
I do. I have a question. Because on the last report that we had right here, it was proposed that it was going to be a flat rate. That's what this is saying. It's not going to be a flat rate for each person because it's going to depend on the uses of each family, right?
Correct. I mean, so what we did in the first one was more the financial plan, how much revenue, how much we need to meet our costs. And to do that, that was that 13% increase in revenue. Now, what we've done is we've discussed what are our goals and objectives. If our goals and objectives is affordability, revenue stability, and conservation, this rate structure achieves it. If we do a 13% across the board, we don't achieve affordability because everyone's going to see a 13% increase. We don't necessarily achieve conservation, and we don't necessarily achieve revenue stability. So in order to do that, we change rate structure. Whenever you change rate structure, there are winners. There are the perception, I should say, of winners and losers. I would call it a cost justification alignment, where we're allocating the cost so that they are justifiable and they're clear and there's a rational nexus behind it.
So just clear here, the average family of four, their usage is 10 to 15. Is that where you're?
Hold on, I'm sorry. The average family, I don't know what I do know is what the average usage is,
Okay.
which is around 12.
About 12.
Yeah,
average.
I don't know if that person is also reflects the average family of four.
Okay, thank you.
What's the average household size in Hollister, Bill? So
Close.
that would reflect
That reflects
your
that.
average there. That would be a family of 3.6.
Right. Great. Any other questions from the council?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor. So, I know this is kind of hard to determine right now, but most of our cost savings in the water treatment plant or wastewater treatment plant was because of the bond rates and because we came in under construction. You want to say?
Yeah, we were about $20 million under estimated cost, and our bond rate was much lower than what was initially when the rate was there.
So since we're doing it in-house here, we pretty much have a pretty good idea of where we're going to be, at least with that part of the
Correct.
Financing.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And then just to add a couple of things, what we would do after this is we would go ahead, take whatever comments you had. We would certainly, if you have any additional comments or questions, appreciate you forwarding them to us. We would bring this back to you on the 17th for you to take action on sending out the notice, right? And then it goes through the 218 process, which is a minimum of 45 days public notice. We would have a meeting there. There would be a public hearing. Sometime in August is when you would actually consider the rates, or there would be an ability for a majority protest. And we'll go through all that with you at your next meeting. But that's kind of where we're at. The other thing that we've asked Sanjay to do, once you guys decide that we are going to send this out to the public, or when you decide that we're going to send it out to the public, what we've asked Sanjay to do is actually to put a rate calculator on that we will put on our city website. So it'll identify. You can go on your bill, you can look and see what your usage was on any number of bills, whatever bills you have laying around. You can plug the number into that calculator. It'll tell you what your bill would be with that with the rates the way they are. So folks can go on there and see if they fall into the 75% that goes up $2 to $5 or $0 to $5 a month, or if they're part of the 25% where something different happens.
These rates would then eventually take place January 2014?
Yeah, so what would happen is when you guys, if you go through the 218 process, or you go through that, if there's not a majority protest, then you would adopt an ordinance that would go ahead and set the rates, and it would set them over the 5-year period, and it would identify those increases, or what they would be starting on January. And then much like we've done with the sewer, for example, if you recall, the original sewer rate had an ultimate sewer rate of, I think it was $124. And you didn't implement those rates because it wasn't necessary to implement those, and you actually, a number of the rate increases that were included, you didn't have to do. So.
Okay.
And that would be an option here. You mean every year when you go to set the rates, we can come back and say, you could, if the project, say for example, the project gets delayed or it comes in under cost or whatever, you could go ahead and say, okay, we would do a financial analysis just like we did with the sewer rates, come back to you and say, okay, you only need to go up, 6% this year, and you could take that action. And like I say, you've done that with the sewer. So I mean, you've been pretty credible when you said you would only raise the rates what you had to. That's exactly what the council's done.
Yeah, I know we still have public comment, but I'm just happy with the clarifications, Harry, that you came up here with. We appreciate that. We're trying to be as transparent as possible with our constituents. We just want to make sure we're getting the right information out. So, Sanjay, too, thank you for the detailed information. That's very helpful for our residents. Obviously, we care about the quality of the water, and we want to make sure that we're providing good quality water to our residents. I remember growing up, I'm born and raised here, so I remember growing up, there was always that joke of, well, it's Hollister water. That was just it. You didn't expect much. If mud came out of your faucet, you would just say, it's Hollister water, So I think a lot of things have changed since I was a child, and I think we've made quite a bit of progress, and I think this is one of those investments that though we're never happy with rate increases, it seems to be a pretty good investment, at least so far. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Harry, you brought up the cost of the salt And I think that's a very important point for a lot of these families that are between that 10 and 15. There's actually a savings if they stop using that salt. They see a price decrease. I think if you could kind of make that clear in some of the future, and you did a good job here, by the way, but just so people really understand and we get them off the salt as quick as possible, but those families will actually see a savings.
Yes, that's exactly correct. And one of the things that the Water Resources Association points out, that the average use here is about 2 bags. But some people, with care, are still using a water softener and using 1 bag of salt. So there's a cost savings there. And as, of course, the water quality improves, then the need for the water softener is greatly diminished, so you can operate it in a more efficient fashion. And Sean Novak has done a lot of research on options for water softeners, and it's a personal choice. He has determined that not everybody will eliminate their water softener, but they'll certainly reduce the usage of salt.
Great. Thank you very much. Are there any speakers?
Yes, Marty Richmond?
Sanjay, thank you. Great job.
Marty Richard from Hollister. One of my concerns is that when we're talking about $1, $1.62, you know, it's hardly anything. I assume that's all year one money.
Yes.
This is not a year one program. This is 6 years of 13% increases. Now, politically, that's the way they feed it to you. Oh, here, you won't have any trouble with your constituents. 6 years from now, maybe you're all gone, but the bill will be there. This is not an argument about whether we need clean water. We need clean water. I supported the sewer plant because there was no other option. My problem here is $30 million, a huge O&M cost, and I disagree with my friend Harry that the cost per unit is going down. The cost per unit is not going down because the O&M costs are going to go up, and they're going to push this thing up. That has nothing to do with the capital. The capital will get paid. But our experience has been the O&M costs wind up with a CPI hooked to San Francisco somewhere. And in 6 or 8 years are out of this world. I mean, or if we're using our own personnel, they're going to have CalPERS. And CalPERS is going up 50%, according to all the reports I got, over the next 6 months, because CalPERS can't pay the retirement funds. I mean, maybe we'll use an outside agency. We won't get stuck with that. The truth of the matter is, if we want to build this, we should go out and find some money somewhere else rather than the ratepayers. Now, I don't know what our current status is because I don't keep track of who's working and who's not. But I can remember days when the lines up here for people who are having their water shut off went around the building. Now, maybe that doesn't happen anymore. I don't know. Maybe all of a sudden everybody got employed. But they couldn't pay the water bill they had before when you threw the sewer bill on it. The idea that don't worry about it because it's only the water bill, not the sewer bill, is ridiculous. Because there's a water bill, and there's a sewer bill, and there's a trash bill, and there's a property tax bill, and even if you're renting, you're paying all of that to somebody. I don't understand all these places in California that manage to get grants to do all these big projects. We don't seem to be able to do it. I don't understand why. They get federal grants, they get state grants, especially when you got a $30 million project. Most of the time, our way of doing it is to say, let's have the ratepayers pick it up. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculously overpriced, out of pocket. Now, I appreciate my good friend Harry says we could have paid $200 million and it was only $30 million. Well, let me tell you something. If the Ferrari dealer offered me 10% off tomorrow, I couldn't buy the car. I don't have the money. Now, in this case, I have the money. I will pay my water bill. I guarantee you. But the people who line up here or have their water threatened to be shut off all the time, have the stuff stuck on their door, or take off without paying the bill, they can't pay the water bill. They're not paying it because they can't. It isn't a matter of whether or not they want to. And it isn't $1.62. That is a fake. And I resent that. I resent people coming up here when they know that this is a 6-year program that is going to double the water rates for a lot of people, and to come up here and say it's $1.62 is fluff. And I hope if you put a calculator on the website that you insist the calculator cover the whole 6 years, not year one, because unless you're willing to turn your water off, you would be paying every day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers? Harry, do you want to address the question on the grants from federal or state sources that we can?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have submitted an application for a grant, and that was done by the agencies through the Yosemite County Water District. And Jeff is here, and he can correct me if my numbers are wrong, but we missed the opportunity, or there was no grant option available for the very first set of projects that we're going to do. Remember, that's less salt. But for the second one, which comes up and construction begins in late 2014, that the grant money could be available for that plant. And I believe that we're competing with several other agencies, but we've been told by the state that we have a very good chance. And I think the maximum grant that's available to us, and Jeff, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is about $6 million.
And then there will be a second round that comes up in about a year.
Okay, so it's $4.5 million for the first round. We have no guarantee of getting it, of course, but a grant application has been submitted, and we did work around the clock to make sure that it was submitted completely and on time. And we did retain a consultant who guided us through the entire process. I would like to add one other thing about the comment on operation and maintenance costs. And there was an emphasis made by the last speaker on labor costs. Well, we have Don Ridenauer in the audience from Sunny Slope, who's currently managing the O&M for Les Salt and will be the manager of the O&M for both facilities. And we don't anticipate that the labor, the number of hours per treated unit of water, so let's say it's 1,000 gallons, is going to increase dramatically. It'll increase slightly because there's more water involved, more chemicals to load, and so on. But if we have a plant that's going to be half the capacity of the future plants, and we're not increasing the number of staff substantially, then the cost, particularly labor, as Mr. Richmond said, will not go up dramatically, even though he has cited some statistics regarding PERS that I'm not familiar with. But in terms of just units of labor per treated unit, it will in fact go down. Any questions on that?
No, I wanted to ask another question about the grants. You mentioned the first grant, $4.5 million for less salt, and the future one, how much that would be for? And are those any of those federal grants or just state?
No, they're through the state. The first one is going to be $4.5 million. They're broken up into regions. This next, the current round that we applied for, there was a total of about $6 million that was available to our region. I don't know exactly how much is going to be available through the next grant cycle, but it's likely to be upwards of about $15 million. So if we're successful in each one of these, that does would significantly cut down the cost of the project. On Mr. Richmond's comment about the PERS increase, our PERS increase next year, we've already got the number from PERS, is only going to be 0.9%, not 50% increase. So it's going to go from 14.9% to about 15.8%. So it's a little increase, but it's not the huge 50% increase that he alluded to.
I got a question for you, Jeff.
Sure.
On these grants, both of them, for the Lizal and for the West Hills. If we're successful obtaining these grants, what time element would you say that we would be notified if we're successful?
Well, the
Ballpark figure.
yeah, the first one that we've applied for that's in the current round would likely be notified sometime in the fall, whether we were successful or not.
In the fall.
Yeah. The next round, they haven't notified us of when the date to apply for that is yet. It's probably going to be sometime after the first of the year in 2014. But you know, the date hasn't been set yet by the state. But the money is committed.
At the end of the day, there is no option. This is a state mandate, not a luxury that we just felt we needed to go through, correct? This is something, if we don't do the improvements, we are going to eventually be hit with a fine or another moratorium.
That is correct. This is
Not
not
somebody's idea that let's just build a great new water deal. And
No. And it was understood that we had to meet these regulations when we began. And again, you have two members of the governance committee that were with us at the very beginning, and they well remember that was the issue when we started.
Are there any other speakers? No? Thank you very much for the presentation, the update. We will move on to item E, no business, and on to F1.
The ordinances before you would amend Chapter 1524, which is your grading and best management practices control ordinance, to impose a requirement that before a grading permit can be issued, the applicant must provide evidence that they have or will divert at least 50% of their waste, their solid waste. This is recommended by the county's, by Mandy, who's here, the county's waste management director. And right now, that 50% diversion goal, or requirement, it's not a goal, it's a requirement, is already in your building code, so that an applicant cannot obtain a building permit without showing evidence of diversion of 50% of the waste generated by either demolition or construction project. So this makes it consistent for grading permits. It makes the grading permits process consistent with building permit process. And be happy to answer any questions.
Now, are we talking about in the construction phase or
Well,
permanently for these,
Well,
the diversion?
This ordinance is dealing with grading. To get a grading permit under our ordinance, you have to, the issue is to divert 50% of the dirt, the materials that are being moved during the grading.
Andy, maybe you can speak to that. So
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. If some of you will recall, because you were here when we did pass the building permit diversion ordinance, there is a requirement, as City Attorney stated, to divert a minimum of 50% of your waste when there's any building permits issued. What we discovered, and so we will be going, or I will be going before the City Council in San Juan, and as well as our Board of Supervisors, and adding this to the grading ordinances. What we discovered recently in the county, so that's what brought this up, is that when a contractor was clearing the land to build. There happen to be some outbuildings. I don't expect this to happen as much in the city limits, but certainly more in the county. In some cases, there may be a small shed or something like that. We just want to make sure we capture that waste and ask the individuals to prepare a diversion plan before they go ahead. If they're just moving dirt around, we would say not applicable. But what happened in this particular instance is they removed a lot of outbuildings, and all that was landfilled instead of the materials were separated and diverted. So it brought it to our attention now that the economy's improving and we're going to see more construction, that this is an area that we need to look at as well.
And during construction, all the waste materials,
There already is
They're
a
already in
requirement to divert a minimum of 50%. And I will add to that mandate, there is now a goal of 75%, not a mandate. The mandate is 50, but the goal is now 75%. So we're going to be asked in the future to do more and more in that direction.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
Yeah, obviously under the staff report, the fiscal impact says no impact on the city, but what about the developers?
You know, I would hope, and using that same example I gave you in the county, the individual, did not prepare a diversion plan because that wasn't a requirement at the time. But when they went to the landfill personnel told them if you separate the materials, if you separate the wood from the rest of it, you get a preferred rate, which is cheaper. And the contractor was glad to hear that. So we're hoping by getting to individuals before they start that they'll know how to do this, and it'll save them money in the long run.
So I know it's kind of hard to determine, but maybe on that example, since you're using that example, what would it cost them to put that plan together?
Putting the plan together, we could actually do it for them. I think
Okay.
in most cases, in most other jurisdictions, contractors are required to put up anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 to $30,000, depending on what kind of work they're doing. They base it on the valuation of the building permits. We don't have any upfront cost to anyone. What we say is if you don't meet the diversion requirement, there is a penalty and on the other side. So in this case, we're probably asking someone to spend, and I'm going to guess, a minimum of half hour. I mean, they know what's out there. There's dirt, there's, X amount of trees, there's an outbuilding, or there's nothing. We're just going to be rearranging the dirt, So I wouldn't think it would take that. We have templates. And again, if someone could just come in and tell us, we'd be glad to fill it out for them.
Okay.
I have a question for you, Mandy.
Sure.
So if there's just moving dirt and no buildings and no other, then you wouldn't have to worry about this, right?
Yeah, we'd ask them to just put what they're doing, and then we would just sign it off as not applicable.
Right.
Yes.
Any other questions? Are there any speakers?
No, this is for the next item.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll make a motion to go ahead and approve ordinance 1093.
Motion to introduce the
Title only.
ordinance. Introduce the ordinance and waive reading.
Okay, is there a second? I'll second the motion. All in favor?
Okay.
Aye. Against?
Aye.
2 and 2. Motion does.
We'll bring this back to the next meeting when you'll have the fifth council member here.
And I think one thing that might be helpful for me, I'm not totally opposed to waste diversion. I think where did Mandy go? There she is. I'm actually very supportive of waste diversion if at all possible. I think the reason I'm not supporting this tonight is because I don't have enough information when it comes to the impacts it'll have on proposed developments. So, and I know those are kind of hard to gauge. It's kind of hard to come to a conclusion on, hey, this is, because it all depends on what they have to work with. But I mean, I think a general idea may be helpful. Maybe getting some folks from the trade that could possibly write a letter of saying, hey, this is okay with us. This is how much it'll impact us. I think that'll be helpful. I'm totally supportive of your efforts, though, in waste diversion. I think it's very important. So thank you for doing that. But if I have that information, that will be helpful to me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. That's it. Thank you very much. Let's move to item F2.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. The resolution is to approve a agreement and execute an agreement with San Juan Bautista for fire protection services in accordance with the contract for fire services that we entered into with the County of San Benito. Basically, the contract was approved by staff. We've looked it over, reviewed it, council's reviewed it, and we ask you to adopt that contract. Also, I have the city manager of San Juan and John Fox, the fire chief, San Juan, here if you have any questions for any of us.
I think it's important to point out this is the last part of the work that was done from the Hollister Fire Department, San Benito County, and San Juan, City of San Juan, Bautista, to work together as a group to pull resources together, provide better service, and help save each agency some money there. So
Right, this is the final consolidation of all the agencies together under the contracts. It takes effect on June 23rd, as both contracts reflect.
I think we could hear from the city manager about his views on it.
Mr. Mayor,
Juan
members of the
City
City
Manager.
Council, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. This contract or agreement has been in the mill for over a year, and we've been working hard to develop it. Like you say, it's the last step, a culmination of a lot of effort. And I'd like to thank Clint, Stephanie, and Mike for doing a lot of hard work to develop this contract. Our council has looked at it, and we fully support it. We're committed to make this agreement work, and we're very enthusiastic about implementing it come along at June the 23rd and get our boots on the ground to make it work. And I'm very, very confident that I think everybody pulling together is going to make it work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the council?
Yeah, I just have a question for you, Roger. With this agreement tonight, you can start with your project over in San Juan? Is that correct?
We're committed. The backhoes are going to start excavating tomorrow. We've been waiting for this event to happen.
That's
yes.
what I'd like to hear. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments from council? Is there a
Marty
speaker?
Richmond.
Speaker cards.
Marty Richmond, Hollister. I'm in full support of this agreement. I just hope the fact that the CalPERS rates are going to increase 50% over the next 7 years do not adversely affect it. The information I have came from the county, who has been officially notified. I have here the CalPERS press release that the board voted over the next 7 years to increase the rates by approximately 50%. Thank you for your time.
That's in 7 years, right?
7 years.
In 7 years.
Sort of like the 6-year increase.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other speakers? No. I want to thank all of you again for your hard work on pulling this together. It was a lot of work and a lot of creative ideas to make that work, and I think it's going to be a good example throughout the state of what happens when agencies do work together. So thank you again very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Is there a motion for approval?
Move to approve resolution number 2013-77.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. We will move on to item G1, report from city council committees. Councilmember Gomez, do you have any?
I didn't have any committee meetings.
Councilmember Scutini.
No council, no meetings, committee meetings.
I did not have any either. Councilmember Valdivia, no? We'll move on to item G2, reports from city council, city manager. Anything you'd like to?
Yeah, first of all, I
Speak
want
up.
to I want to thank Mike. I don't think he's. Oh, there he is. He's back there tonight. Thanks, Mike Chambliss, for your work. Hopefully, you got some days off after the air show. But I just wanted to thank you for all your work and all the work of the volunteers for putting that air show together. Saturday was, it felt cool, but I was burned for like a few days. Yeah, I was peeling like a snake. So anyway, it was a very nice show, and I want to thank you for all your work on that. I'm also excited to say that, and I was hoping the police department would be just as excited about this one, but I'm happy to say that AB 5, the Homeless Bill of Rights, died in Appropriations Committee. So at least for now, the homeless still have rights. They just don't have this Bill of Rights by Assemblymember Amiano. But urinating in public and doing all that good stuff isn't something that I'm supportive of. So I'm glad that his efforts failed. And that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Gomez. Councilmember Scatini.
Yeah, I want to thank Mike, too, for having a good air show. In fact, this air show probably was one of the best air shows that we had here in Hollister. Very well coordinated and some good acts. And you did a good job, and all the volunteers did an excellent job keeping the thing going. That's it.
Thank you. I also want to thank you. I thought it was a great show. My kids loved the show. They talked about it all night that night, so that's what it's really about, is bringing families out. I'm sure as years go by, more and more families will understand the importance of the event and how it's right here in our own backyard. So thank you again for that. I'm sure it was a lot of work you put out there, so thank you. Also wanted, I attended the Veterans Memorial Day event, and as always, it's a touching time, and but it's an important time to honor those that sacrifice their lives for our freedoms. And I know Mr. Gomez was there also, and also Councilmember Ray Friend was there. So I want to thank everybody on that event. And also, I attended the Jóvenes de Antaño annual, is it second annual event?
Second.
Annual fundraising event. It was a great dinner here at the Vets building, so thank you very much for all your hard work on that event.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for attending. Thank you.
And Councilmember Scatini was there too, so. Councilmember Valdivia?
Yeah, I just want to, I really don't have any, really a lot to report. I just want to thank Mike and everybody involved in the air show for all the hard work. I know there was a lot of folks out there, volunteers, including everybody, and I just want to thank you for that effort. And I've been hearing good things about it, so I think that's really good. And also thank you for participating in the Jóvenes de Antaño Services, Senior Services second annual function. And it wasn't. You understand? I wasn't there. One thing, I wasn't there. I had to go to I had to go see my grandson graduate. I went all the way to Oregon, so I had a really good excuse. But I had a really good report from my staff. So, and I want to thank everybody in the community that supported. We got a lot of contributions, through the mail. Not only the folks that participated in the function. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Scatini, you want to add something?
Yeah, and it's one more thing, Mike. If you can, maybe next council meeting, if you can come back and give us a report on the air show. What's that? Oh, okay.
Tiny one?
Thank you.
Okay, City Manager.
Yeah, a couple of things. First off, and Jerry, I think, is going to be talking with y'all about budget meetings on June 12th and 13th to start with and see how far we get. We are actually fortunate, I think we can go through that the week of the 24th, have some time to look at things. But we're fortunate that the first meeting in July is July 1st. So we do hit a council meeting July 1st. So if that's when we need to get to when we have to adopt our budget, that gives us a little more time than if it were, the 7th or 8th of the month. So anyway, so we're working on that. I wanted to advise you, we received on Thursday a letter from the Hollister School District giving us 30 days notice that they were canceling our agreements for the Margaret Mays Gym and the Rancho San Justo Gym, and a 180-day notice of our agreement for the use of the Rancho San Justo fields, which, quite frankly, if that were to stand, would really devastate our programs, would devastate a lot of other people's programs, and just would really serve to begin toppling the youth activities in our community. I went and spoke to their board last week, and they during public comment, and they later in that meeting they asked the superintendent to re-agendize that, to reconsider that. So it sounds like we need to talk to them about the agreements, but it sounds like they're going to reconsider the cancellation of the agreements. I'll be bringing an item to you on the 17th, asking you to amend the agreement slightly to allow us to negotiate over the next 6 months, so that we have time to talk. I mean, they have the concerns like everybody else. You know, how much are they charging? Are they getting what they should get? Are we getting what we should get? And it'll really provide an opportunity for us to negotiate as opposed to ending our recreation programs. But I did want to let you know that I received that letter. I'll probably be responding to them, but I think we have a resolution to it, and I'll keep you up to date on it.
Thank you. That's very important.
Yeah.
Look through that.
And then if Mike wanted to give 30 seconds or less, as Robert would say, on the air show.
Wow, that was kind of harsh. Honorable Mayor, council members, I appreciate you folks thanking me, but to be totally honest with you, it takes a big team to do this. Two of the people I rely on a lot are in this room, and that's Cheryl and Lynn. They catch a lot of the stuff, because there's all kinds of stuff going on. Numbers were decent. We did okay. The key thing is everybody was safe. We actually did have an off-site accident with one of our performers, so he was unable to perform. It didn't happen in an aircraft. He slipped and fell at the hotel and broke a rib. So anyway, luckily, I think we were able to keep things going, so he wasn't missed too much. We did lose a little bit of money, about $1,500. And if the airport needs to pay $1,500 for that kind of advertisement, my recommendation is we do it every year, because there was a lot of good PR there. In fact, we're at 496 likes on our Facebook page, so if 4 people could go like that, please. They really want to get 500. It's important to certain people. But Captain Westrick and Chief Reynoso helped me out with police, and Chief O'Connor, Acting Chief O'Connor, helped me out with the fire a lot. So it took a big team to get that done. So
It did. You guys all did a great job.
thanks.
Again, thank you for that.
And then my plan is to present a detailed report to the Airport Commission at the end of the month, and then bring something to you 1st of July.
Thank you. City Attorney?
Nothing for me, but I will take this opportunity to report out of closed session that the council took no action to be reported. They met in closed session for 2 potential litigation matters and also a negotiation with labor unions. No actions to report on either.
Thank you very much. Okay, Chief.
Yes, Your Honor. I would just like to advise that, as you're aware, we closed Brigantino Park on Sunday due to a mountain lion sighting that occurred there. And I just wanted to advise that the park, we're planning on opening it tomorrow. There's been some signage, some new signs warning of the possibility of a mountain lion being in the area that have been installed by Public Works. And if all goes as planned, the park will be open tomorrow for the public, whoever chooses to go there. We haven't seen the mountain lion since yesterday, so we're hoping that the activities that occurred there with the police department and all the news crews heading over there might have scared it away and it found a better home. But if anybody goes to the park and sees the mountain lion, we ask them to call 911 and let us know that it's there, and then we can take some further efforts to capture it if needed.
I have to say that I'm a big cat lover. I love kitties. And so if you do tranquilize it, give me a call. I'd love to go over there and pet them. I love cats. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
City Clerk,
Nothing to report.
any other oral reports from council? No? All right, let's move forward to item G3.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to provide you a brief report and get some direction. Back in 2008, the very beginning of 2008, the city and the county entered into a memorandum of understanding on a housing program coordinator for the county of San Benito. The county was seeking to have an employee work on their affordable housing programs. However, most of the folks at the county didn't have the experience necessary to supervise or even begin the program as a whole. What the city came in and did with the redevelopment agency, because we had a program manager and we had some housing folks that had done it in the past, we basically said that we would provide the oversight for that person. They would be in our office. It would be kind of a combined, consolidated effort between the city's affordable housing program through the redevelopment agency and the county's affordable housing program. Most of their funds were generated either through grants or they had also a housing in lieu fee that was charged to new developments that was to be used to preserve and provide new affordable opportunity, new affordable housing units. Where we are now, fast forwarding, say 5 years later, is the county has come a little bit. I don't want to say they have come short. They're lacking some funding to keep the program fully funded at 100%. Again, one of the things that I don't know if most of you probably know CJ. CJ's been here the whole time, all 5 years. He was the one that was initially hired. Actually, and CJ's been a big help for me because we've lost a couple of our former housing people for various reasons, and he actually has now become the person who is helping me train the folks that we have working for us. So CJ has come to me and said, can we figure out how to actually make this work? Again, because it's hugely important not only for the county, but it's also nice for the city as well. Again, he provides us with a lot of support. Where we are right now is that he's about $40,000 a year short over at the county, and the idea is that our idea is that we would take some of our affordable housing money that we have, we would enter into a new MOU with the county for 2 years, and we would help provide that $40,000 to make him fully whole, and he would continue to be available to us and the county to do affordable housing programs. Not only that, there's a couple of things that are also coming up that's hugely important, not only to the county but also to the city. The city and the county are both mandated to have housing elements adopted here in the next couple of years. CJ was one of the authors of the county's housing element a few years ago, or 5 years ago now, and so he has experience in that. What we have done in the past is we generally hire a consultant to help us with our housing element, and generally that costs us, our last housing element, I think we paid about $75,000 just to the consultant, but also there's a ton of staff time that goes in that as well. So one of the ideas about a new MOU or a multi-year MOU with the city and the county is that we're proposing is that be a part of it, so that we don't necessarily have to hire a consultant to help write that housing element. We can actually do it in-house with CJ and some of the other folks that we have. In addition, one of the other things that we have is some of you may be aware of, the city has, or the county, I want to be clear about this. The county has a revolving loan fund, RLF fund program. It's a revolving loan fund. It's through the EDA. However, the city has historically administered the program. It has not been doing very well. Nobody's had a lot of time to work on it over the past few years. The EDA and the city is working on how to make it work with Cal Coastal and some of the other private lending organizations, but actually now the idea is to possibly transfer the program to the county. Again, we use the county as the source of the financing. It's a county-wide program. It's a county-wide economic development program. So what we're hoping to do is maybe have this position, or CJ's position, I'll just say CJ, to possibly he would then be the administrator of that program, which there is administrative funds. Again, the way I'm hoping that it actually would end up working is that we would fund this
position, or we would help fund this gap for 2 years, continue the affordable housing programs, get us through our housing element, and then hopefully the transfer of the EDA monies would go to the county, and then he would use that money for ongoing. So this is not something that we, meaning the city or the affordable housing program of the city, would be obligated to do forever. Because we don't necessarily, I mean, the funding source for him at the county usually, like I said, relies on grants. Grants aren't always successful. I don't believe the county is collecting an in lieu fee anymore. I think they waived that a few years ago. So there isn't going to be a permanent source financing for this position in the long run without doing something creative. I will answer any questions that you may have. However, what I would like to do is maybe get some direction for us to start putting together this MOU, having both legal counsels review it and try to get it on an agenda as soon as possible, just so that from a budgetary purpose over at the county, Ray Espinoza and the CAO knows that there's going to be this funding available for CJ, and at the same time, we can put it in our budget, our operating budget that we'll be going through out of the housing fund for next fiscal year. So.
Okay. Questions from council?
What you're really saying is that you want CJ to help you out.
Yeah, well, CJ does help us out.
It's helping you out, but it means that the county can't really come up with the $40,000 that he would. You would take money from the housing fund to make up that $40,000.
Yeah. Essentially, the way I understand it, and I haven't gotten all the budget numbers, but CJ's here and he'd be happy to answer those questions directly. But it appears that basically he's about $40,000 short on an annual basis. He's getting some other money from Health and Human Services. He's getting some other monies coming from different other divisions or departments at the county to help, because he helps everybody do that. So yes, we would be subsidizing CJ's position to the tune of, say, $40,000 a year. My proposal is sort of to do that for 2 years until we can get something that's more permanent in place.
Right, and then that $75,000 you mentioned that you had for a consultant. We don't need to get a consultant until we got CJ. And CJ is very capable of doing that job.
Well,
right?
if you think he's very capable, that's great. I think.
Well, I've worked with
no,
him for
that's why I'm here. That's why I'm.
Is he here for you or against you, CJ?
No,
I worked with CJ for a long time, in the last 4, 5, 6 years,
no, he is capable. And like I said, he did work on the county's housing element. He's going to have to work on the county's housing element that's coming up real quickly because, as most of you know, if you don't have a housing element that's certified by the state of California, you don't even get to apply for grants. Right. So that's why it's important for Health and Human Services and some of the other organizations that rely on that money. That's why it needs to get done. And as you know, the county staff is dwindling pretty rapidly over in their planning department. So.
Okay. Any other questions from council? No?
Let's go with it.
Okay.
Keep moving forward and see what you can present to us.
Like I said, my direction will be is we'll come back with an MOU for a couple of years and we'll go from there. And you'll probably see it at your next meeting. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move forward to item G4.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This evening, staff is seeking direction on some resolution to some water issues at Veterans Memorial Park. By way of a little bit of history, over the years, the city and the county have had a number of agreements for use of Veterans Memorial Park. And some of the key issues that we have had in these agreements was the ability for the city to construct and operate a water pressure booster system at the park, which is at the northeast corner of the park near Memorial and Hillcrest, and is an important component of both the City of Hollister water system and the Sunny Slope County Water District system. In addition to that, The agreement allows or gives the city the right to use the two softball fields, which we refer to as the large field and the softball, or in the small field, for our adult and youth softball programs. In exchange for these rights to those components of the park, the city provides the county water for irrigation purposes, for potable water for restrooms, drinking fountains, concession stands that are at the park. So that's kind of the trade-off. And at the time, we also had a solid waste. Initially, we had a solid waste refuse service, and we provided garbage service for the city or for the county as well at the park. We additionally provide free sanitary sewer for all the restrooms and various sanitary sewage situations at the park. So city staff and county staff have met on a number of occasions and have come to an agreement on how we can work out some of the issues. The biggest concern from the city's perspective was this agreement that we're in now was entered into 1984, and there have been a lot of changes at the park, including quite a few more user groups that are using that facility, and there's been more construction of irrigated turf out there that's cost a lot of money over the years that the city has been footing the bill for. Our annual contribution in the way of the cost of the water to fund the irrigation out there is somewhere between $30,000 and $45,000 a year. So we're looking at ways to reduce those costs not only to the city but to the user groups, because a couple of years ago we set up metered systems at each of the facilities so we can track how much each user group is using out there. And the concept is to bill that back to the user groups. Steve Wittry, the county administrator for the Public Works Department, is here this evening. He can probably fill in some of the gaps here, as well as I think Clint's going to have a few things to say too. Like I said, city staff and county staff have met on a number of occasions, and we started discussions back in 2010 on trying to resolve some of these issues. And it's been an interesting process. The Veterans Memorial Park Commission has been looking at a number of issues also regarding the water there. One of the concepts that they put together was putting in an irrigation well, drilling a well just for the park. They're not using the city water system. And that way it would reduce costs, because if you were just using it for irrigation, it wouldn't need to be, the water quality would not need to be at the high standards if it were for for human consumption. So that would reduce the cost. So that's where the county has kind of headed, and the Veterans Memorial Park Commission has made that recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, and the board has adopted a $200,000 amount for the construction of the well and subsequent pipelines for the operation of that. And they're in the process of getting bids, and Steve informs me that they're very, very confident that those bids will come in under the $200,000 amount that they have budgeted in their capital improvement projects budget. And so we're counting on that. One of the things that the county is reaching out to the city to do is to help them with the funding of this irrigation well construction. Their funding source, they're using park impact fees. Their funding source only allows them to spend use 57% of the total cost of their from their park impact funds to pay for this. So they're about 43%, or they estimate they're going to be about 43% short on the cost of the construction of this well. So that's the request this evening, is that the city pick up the 43% additional amount to make this project work, which would come from our Water Enterprise Expansion Fund, and it would not be a general fund hit at all. So that's where we're headed at this point, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that the council may have on this.
On your report here, it says that, you know, the well that's gonna be built there, you want 43% of the
Mhm.
cost. And then the county will cover the rest, I guess. That water is the water that we're talking about, that's what is used for irrigation and just to irrigate, and
Yes.
it's not for the use of the public, like for drinking or?
No.
Oh,
It
okay.
will not be potable water. It'll
I
just
know,
be
because I
for
was looking at that
irrigation
and I go,
purposes.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Yeah, it's just gonna be, so it's gonna be less, it's gonna be cheaper. Yeah, okay.
yes.
Did you say, Clay, that their county's taking bids already, the park, to build that well?
I believe they're bidding out pieces, or getting prices for different pieces of it, so that they can not have a general adding 10% to everything.
I'll let Steve
Because,
answer
I mean,
that
there's electrical, there's a lot of different things, and if you bid them separately, you get a good price for them instead of having a general, put 10% markup on all this sub.
Exactly. So we're acting as a general contractor for this project, and essentially we actually have a bid already in for the well itself. We have a bid in for a directional drill for the electrical power from the main power near the small softball field to the well site. Those numbers came in very favorably. The extra cost we still have to go forward would be the cost of the actual equipment, the well pump head itself, as well as some pipeline changes to separate the existing irrigation system, the potable from the non-potable, because right now it's all under the same irrigation system. So I have to separate those once the well is constructed.
Is that a big deal, separating them?
In a perfect world, no, but being that the Vets Park is very old, we need to make sure there's no cross connections. There's been a lot of stuff that's happened through the different user groups that have been out there, so it will require a little bit extra testing to make sure that we don't have any cross connection situations, but it won't be a big deal mechanically to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
So just to wrap up, if the council's amenable to this, once the bids are in and everything, we'll put the dollar amounts into our capital program, come back to you with that and move forward. It would probably be useful if you could take a vote supporting this so that Steve can let folks at the county know that the council voted to support it.
Form of a motion?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I make a motion that we support the county's concept. Is that good enough?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Move forward to item G5.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, item G5. Clint, do you want to talk about that, or?
Yes, sorry, thank you. As you know, Ms. Ateague will be leaving us on June 20th, so we have one council meeting left. We have a number of things going on over the next period of time, and some ongoing things. It would be very useful if there were a little bit of overlap time. We've talked to the law offices of Rob Wellington. They have assisted in the past when Ms. Ateague has been on vacation. In fact, if you'll recall, Deb Mall was here at one of your meetings covering. So they're familiar with Hollister. They're familiar with the area. They're the city attorney for San Juan Bautista, so they have some experience. As we were trying to get this done so we would have some overlap time, I just got the agreement today, but it's $180 an hour for however many hours we ask. They believe they can spare 10 to 15 hours per week, which would probably be no more than what we would need over an interim period. So what we're doing is asking you to authorize me to execute a contract with them, or a letter of agreement with them for attorney services on the interim. Then the other item on here is to also get direction regarding permanent city attorney services. And if there is a desire to go ahead and allow us to use the Wellington law firm on an interim basis, maybe if we could make a determination on that action and then move on to the discussion of longer term, if that's okay with everybody?
I think so. I did a little research on them. I see they handle the legal business for San Juan Bautista. And, it was Marina or Seaside, one of the others, Marina. So they're obviously very familiar with this area and other cities. So I think it'd be a good idea to move forward with their services.
I'll make a motion.
Motion. Is there a second? Oh, you do?
Second.
No, there's two
There's
parts.
2 parts.
Discussion.
There's,
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. You didn't want to address the interim, did you? Oh, I'm sorry.
You have a speaker card, Mr. Mayor.
Pauline made the second, right?
yes.
No, it was, I
Two
just knew the
items.
other discussion was going to be a discussion, and so.
You tricked me on purpose. Marty Richwood from Hollister. I certainly, I'm fine with having an interim. I read it on the internet, and I was in a big hurry. I did not see, maybe you could clarify for me, I also wanted to speak on the other half of it. Was there a total, either a calendar date where this would run out if it's not renewed by the city council, or a total dollar amount that would run out, so that's just not open-ended, so that would be an incentive to at least get another report? Was that on there? I didn't see it.
Yeah,
If it was, I missed it.
up to 2,700 a week.
No,
Yeah, but that's not,
no, there is not a.
Oh, length? Okay.
in other words, okay, I recommend, do what you want, you will, anyway. But I recommend you either pick a number of weeks, or pick a number of dollars, pick something, and say, this request is good for, you can put it out there ways. If you think you need 2 months, put it out there 2 months. So that at least there's an incentive to come back and say, okay, we haven't changed anything, and now we're out of money, so we got to do it all over again. That'll keep everybody's nose to the grindstone. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to amend my motion and add a 6-month period to my motion.
Up to 6 months.
Up to 6 months.
I'll second that. Good
Second.
amendment.
First, second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Did you vote?
No, I didn't vote.
Oh, I didn't hear you.
I vote no.
You voted no.
Not for 6 months. No.
Up to 6 months.
No.
So at that point, whether it's less than 6 months or up to 6 months.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'd like to address my memo, if I can.
Sure.
So on Friday night, I sent a memo to my fellow council members and staff.
But,
in regards.
Mr. Gomez, would
Go
it be
ahead.
first better to have city manager kind of talk about the item, then you could address
Sure,
your
that's
memo?
fine.
Would that be better?
Yeah.
And really, this is one area where I mean, I guess there's a couple of things that I can talk to you about as a practical matter. The time that I've been here, I certainly think it would have been very difficult to manage the time of a contract attorney. And I know they're set up different ways. They're set up with retainers. They're set up with any number of things. But having a in-house attorney, number one, you know what your costs are going to be for the most part. Number two, I don't have to chase down every single staff member every time they're working on an agreement and say, are you burning an hour of attorney time, which I think leads to better agreements as opposed to having folks, waiting. Well, it doesn't help because we fulfill all wait till the last minute. But I mean, waiting down and not providing time for the attorney to review things because we're worried about, am I going to get yelled at because I'm burning attorney time? And so you need somebody to manage all the attorney time. And are we going over retainer amounts? Are we doing all those things? Although that being said, there are a number of cities that work perfectly well with that. Depending on size, depending on what they're used to, depending on how they do things. It's not something I've ever had experience with. It's not something any of the staff with the city of Hollister, I believe, have had much experience with. And so that's really all I can speak to is just the ability to ensure that staff members can have agreements and things reviewed without worrying about how much it's going to cost in the long run. and allowing the attorney to make decisions on what's important and what isn't. I think with a contract attorney, they don't care. They're getting paid what they're getting paid. They don't need to make value judgments on how much time they spend on specific items. You know, if there's an assistant engineer that's working on a little agreement and he's calling them every 5 minutes, they're going to be happy to bill for every 5 minutes that guy's calling them. When Stephanie can say, well, I'm not working on an encroachment permit from an assistant engineer, and you can put those, again, places do it. You can put those agreements or those processes into place to make sure that things are properly used. But given the amount of staff, that's just another thing that somebody has to ride herd on. The other thing is I think that having an in-house attorney is very useful when it comes to dealing with personnel matters, to where, you know, that I would say almost, well, what we've had with the last couple of attorneys, we've had very small HR departments. They've been able to really carry a lot of the HR load that probably an attorney normally wouldn't, number one. Number two, it's awfully nice to have an attorney make the decision on whether you need something more than general expertise than to have your HR person do it. I mean, your HR person, that's fine, but having an attorney that's accessible, that's being asked those things, can say, look, this is one that can really get you in trouble, can really, you know, get your butt in a sling if we don't get somebody who knows what they're doing to deal with that. And I think that expertise is a nice thing to have in-house. So, I mean, that's what I can speak about with regard to what you guys choose to do. It's the one position that doesn't report to the city manager. So whatever you guys feel comfortable with is really what's important in this selection, not what I necessarily feel comfortable with or staff feels comfortable with, because, again, this is the other position that works for you, and that's is the city attorney or the city attorney contract. You're the client. As a group, you're the client. And so that's a decision you guys have to make. And like I say, there are places that work perfectly fine with contract attorneys. We've just never had any experience with that, and I think the change would be somewhat jarring. And you know, anyway, so that's my 2 cents. But beyond that, it's 100% you guys' call on this one, because it's the position that works directly for you.
Mr. Gomez? Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, anyway, I thank you, Clint. I did, like I said, I did send out a memo to my fellow council members and city staff. I guess I echo what Clint was saying, but from a council member's perspective, in the past 5 years, whether it was Stephanie or whether it's anybody else, it's just nice knowing that we have that city attorney there available for us at all times. I think it's very admirable that the mayor and Councilmember Schettini would like to possibly contract those services out, because I know you're doing it because you want to possibly look at cost savings, you know, and I think that's great. I think it's great to look at stretching our dollars, you know. I think that's very important. But it's hard to stretch our dollars with one person. It is a lot easier to stretch our dollars, say, and when you're looking at a whole department. When you're looking at one employee, it's really hard to it's actually it's really easy to look at the numbers. And that's why if you look at my memo, I calculated that if we possibly did use a city attorney full-time in contracted services, it would cost us more than $500,000. If you don't like my numbers, that's fine. You could actually look at just tonight's numbers that are provided on the staff's recommendation for interim services, and you're looking at $11,700 a month for a total of $140,000 a year for 10 to 15 hours a week of service. So that alone tells you that it will not make sense to contract out city services. Like I said, I give you guys, I guess, a pat in the back, you, Mr. Mayor, and Councilmember Schettini, for trying to save the city money wherever you can. I'm supportive of your efforts of saving money. I like to save my own money as well. But as a representative of the 4th District in the city of Hollister, it's my responsibility to make sure my constituents are well represented. And I think the best way to have them represented is to have a full-time city attorney. So I'm ready to answer any questions that you may have in regards to my memo. It's maybe something new, but I maybe something new to some folks, but I'm not very, I don't hold back on my comments and my perspective, whether somebody likes them or not. So whether I agree with you or disagree with you, whoever it may be, and if you don't like that, that's just unfortunate, because I'm here to represent my district, District 4, and this is what I think is the best thing for my constituents. So I hope the council could support me and the mayor as well, and that we could just move forward in a recruitment of a city attorney. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Scatini?
Yeah, first of all, Victor, I represent my district too, and you're right. The reason I want to go for the contract attorney is to save the city money. Now, it seems to me that, I guess this law firm works for San Juan on a contract basis, am I correct? King City has one. There's up and down the whole state of California, there's contract attorneys. Before we go shooting our mouth off, why don't we check with these other agencies and see how it works?
I actually checked with a few council members from other agencies.
Have you checked with King City?
And that's why, I know, not specifically King City, but I've checked with, as you know, my brother was the mayor and council member of the city of Glendale and other cities that are out there. And I've spoken to them, and they've actually encouraged and supported my recommendations because of the need. But, you know, I agree with you. I mean, if this is a time, we knew this was coming, so I did my research. How many phone calls did you make?
I didn't make any.
Well, guys,
I'm just saying that we had the opportunity.
Let's keep it on the topic of what it is.
I'm being asked a question, Mr. Mayor, so I just want to answer the question.
But please, let's just
and you answered it. You didn't. So what I would like to see done before we make any concrete, you know, I would like to do some investigation and check with these other agencies and see if it works out. Instead of just come up with a bunch of figures, I can come up with a whole bunch of figures too.
Well, you didn't, and I did.
No,
and they're right there.
Yeah, you just sit down
Councilmember
and shut up.
Scatini and Mr. Gomez, please. Council, are you done? I'm sorry, sir.
No, I'm not done yet.
You can continue.
So my recommendation is, with my fellow council members, is to check with these other cities that have contract attorneys and see how it's working. That's my comments.
Thank you. Councilmember Valdivia? No comment? I like to, I did do some research, and that's how I found out the group we authorized tonight, the Wellington Group, does do contract work for a few different cities. But I was, as I looked around, I wanted to look for cities that were similar to ours. And amazed to find out that quite a few cities have gone contract. Paso Robles, Scotts Valley, Santa Cruz, Gilroy, I believe Saratoga, several cities have gone contract. And I had a conversation with the city manager in Watsonville. They've also gone to contract attorney about how it works for them. Their population is about 50,000. They have about 360 employees. And they seem to like to go in that direction because it gives them the specialties they need. If they need the specialty in HR, the firm they work with has that specialty. If they need the specialty in another subject, they have somebody they can call from. And it seems to them, in their opinion, it keeps it in control. But I think one thing that they pointed out to me, or he pointed out to me, was what does your city manager really want, and where are you guys going, what direction are you going in? So at that point, I kind of realized, really, this is something we need to talk about as far as where we're going to first, because if the city manager we choose wants to work with a full-time city attorney, well, we should give him those tools. If he wants to work with a contract firm, we should give him those tools. I think we're need to focus on our direction as far as the city manager aspect and working with a professional group to kind of look at our city and see where we're really at. What's the reality out there nowadays with all the different tools that are available? I think it might be time to work or talk to a professional firm that handles these types of decisions. I know currently the county is working with a firm I think it might be an idea for us to go in that direction first so they can take a look at our city and see what we really need. It might be we need that full-time attorney. It might be that we're better off with a contract attorney. It might be that we need to improve some of our, the direction we're going in some of the different departments to make them more efficient and give our staff the tools they need. So I think rather than trying to make a decision on city attorney right now, we should be more focused on our direction as a city, especially in regards to where we're going to go with our future city manager. Obviously, our city manager will be leaving us in July. He's done a lot of good work here, and thankfully he's staying with us through some of these most important issues. So I want to thank you again on that, Clint. But I think we would be better off looking for a firm to help us go in a direction rather than just making guesses. I do want to see facts. I want to know what provides us the best return for our dollar. And again, a lot of things have changed out there, and a lot of professional firms that can help us pick that right direction. So I think our focus should be more on our own direction towards city manager, so that city manager can help us make that final decision. This firm that we have now, the Wellington Group, obviously can handle what we need right now to get us through these times. And as we move forward with the selection of city manager, we could get more of that input from that person on see what works best for him and his career, his experiences.
I would like to make a comment. That is that I've been a city attorney for almost 30 years now. I've been an in-house city attorney for this city and the city of Salinas. I was contract counsel to the city of Greenfield. And I can tell you that there is a qualitative difference between having an in-house city attorney and having a contract attorney. And part of that qualitative difference comes from the quantitative difference of how much time you get the contract attorney to be in-house, sitting at a desk in your city hall, working with your staff. You will not get the same services with a contract city attorney, and you will pay more money. But before you, and I think it's a good idea to go through your quest and start comparing what other cities do, but you need to keep in mind that this city, as all cities, is a unique city. And the issues that face this city are different than the issues that face Santa Cruz, for example, or even Watsonville. The other thing that I would suggest you do is that somebody talk to me to find out what I do, because to be frank, I don't think any of you know what I do on a daily basis. If you want the same kind of services that you've been getting, and I can tell you in terms of animal control services, most city attorneys do not give you what I give this city. If you want to maintain those services, you need to know what those services are, because I think there's a group of citizens out there who rely on your animal control division, and they rely on me. And you will not find many city attorneys who do what are dog cases, not because they're lousy cases, but because they're bow-wow dog cases. That's just one example. I also do a fair amount of code enforcement. You won't find most city attorneys doing that. So you really need to know what it is I do. Nobody's asked me what I do. I do more than just help you at council meetings and help staff reports get on the agenda. So that's my advice, is find out from me what I do, and then figure out how much time it takes to do that and what it's going to cost you to get that kind of service. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any speaker cards?
Marty Richmond?
Marty Richmond from Hollister. Since this was split, I guess my one speaker card gets used twice. And I just want to say, I don't think there's any direct conflict in what anybody is saying. I agree with the overall proposition that it's too early to make a decision, and I definitely agree with the city attorney's remarks about finding out what we do here and how much time is devoted to what kind of work that we do. I think it's critical to understand that. I think also her remarks about every city being different. You have to look at your staff and their experience, and of course you're going to have another keyhole in staff because the city manager is leaving, and their experience and what they can do, which would make it easy on an attorney, or what they can do is going to make it hard on an attorney. Okay. The other issue is work that we've had sitting around for years. I hate to say it, that's on the back burner because everything else comes boiling up. And someday or another, we've got to get around to it. And my pet peeve, as we all know, is rewriting the MOUs that we have with the unions, because they have been cut and pasted to the point where I'm not sure if you brought them into court, some judge wouldn't throw us all out, okay? Because they're unreadable in some cases. They may meet the legal requirements, but they don't meet the sense requirements for the public to read. So I hope you will sit back, take a deep, deep breath, and start putting together the information, which is more important than whether or not some other venue needs a full-time or some other venue needs a part-time. The information that applies to us. What do we want the city attorney to do? How much time do we expect? And we need her view of it. We need the city manager's view of it. We need the department head's view of it, so they can say what they think they get out of it. We need all the council's view of it. And I think once you get the job defined, and also take a look at how much outside money we spend for specialists, maybe it's way above what other people, maybe it's way below what other people spend. With that in mind, then we can make a decision, because it's the total bill. It's not just whether or not we put somebody on part-time or full-time. It's the total bill at the end of the year when we have to have specialists because perhaps the attorney we get doesn't do something. So I know I sound like a Dutch uncle here, but it's obvious to me that's what we need to do, and we just need to take a deep breath and do that on some kind of schedule, so we get it done before the assets are not here any longer that we need to start looking at. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other speakers? No. Again, I think the direction, it could be, again, that we need a full-time attorney. It could be that the new city manager likes working with contract attorneys because of their specialties in different areas. I don't have that answer yet. What I do want to do is make sure we get the right answer at the end of the day. I do think we need to look at some of the way we do things and see if we can't improve on some of the things we do currently. Again, let's find people that know this government well and can help us get a little more efficient, make sure we're using our funds wisely, and that we start having the goals that we need to achieve what we're trying to get to. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about, making sure our community is happy with the services they're being provided by us. So with that, I think
It sounds, Mr. Mayor, I gotta say, it sounds to me like nobody wants to make a decision about anything, to be completely honest with you. I mean, who's gonna actually step up and say, this is what we need to do? To me, it sounds like a bunch of, oh, well, we're just gonna wait, and we'll see, maybe we'll think about it in a couple months, and, you know, I'm sorry, but that's not, to me, that's not what I consider leadership, you know? Not your leadership, but what I qualify as leadership. So I think somebody with leadership needs to step up and say, this is the right thing to do for the city of Hollister. To me, it sounds like I'm not hearing any direction. All I'm hearing is, well, we're going to think about it, and maybe in a month we'll talk again. And then maybe in 2 months we'll talk some more, and then maybe we'll make a decision, and maybe we won't. You know, there's a lot of vagueness here. There's a lot of vagueness, and if that's a word. And it bothers me because I like to see stuff get done. I don't like to sit up here and say, you know, I got kids at home. I have a wife. I have stuff to do, you know? And I don't want to keep coming back and visiting the same items over and over because nobody wants to make a decision. My recommendation is that we begin recruitment of a permanent city attorney. After the research that I've done, that is, and obviously I don't have the support here tonight, and that's fine. But all I'm saying is I'm being a leader from my district, and I'm saying this is the right decision to make for my constituents. Obviously, I don't have the support. That's fine, but at least I'm taking a position. Thank you.
I think I just want to point out again, it's not about not making a decision. It's about not having to make a decision twice because we made the wrong decision the first time. What I'm pointing out is our focus should be on the city manager so that city manager can help us make that decision on what
But
the
we're
tools.
the council.
Exactly.
Aren't we the ones that are
And the
supposed
most
to be
important-
making those decisions?
Councilmember Gomez, please. The most important decision we have to make is our leadership with the city manager. What tools he needs. The reality of our city is we do need some work here. We do need to update some of our processes. It's correct, the MOUs are outdated. They've been cut and pasted to death, along with a lot of other things. And this is why we need, our focus should be bringing a firm or a company that can help us make those decisions correctly first time around so we don't get ourselves in trouble down the road here. So that's what I'm looking for. I'd like to see, rather than trying to make a decision on a attorney tonight, I'd like to see us start discussing finding a firm that can help us with some of these areas that we need to focus on. And then we can make better decisions as we get that information back. The Wellington Group is a great law firm that can help us for this period of 6 months or less, but I think our focus should be towards finding a direction or organization of our own city. So with that, I'd like to say I think we should table this and move towards gather more information. Again, we can talk to the firm the county is using currently or another firm we can look for to get some of this information we need.
What sort of firm?
They have a firm right now.
They
They're
have a
going
legal
through a
firm?
lot
I
of
thought-
their. They're
I thought
going
they had
through
county
a
counsel.
lot of their different departments right now.
Oh, okay, gotcha. They're the people who are doing their personnel stuff?
Personnel,
Okay.
HR, and they do
There's,
the.
yeah, according to the Assistant County Counsel, the firm of Rennie Sloan, Holtzman, and whatever from San Francisco has a non-attorney working in their HR department, has an attorney on board to do their 2 PERB charges that they have pending in PERB, the Public Employee Relations Board, and they have a third person from their staff who is an attorney who is going to be doing their labor negotiations. I don't think that that firm is doing any organizational work with the County of
Well,
San Benito.
The point is, I didn't say they were doing the work with San Benito County. I said they're working with San Benito County on different areas. Again, the point I'm making is, let's make sure we're going to go down the right path here, rather than just jumping into a decision where we're binding ourselves into a long-term contract and then find out we're not happy with it 6 months down the road. So I'd like to move in the direction of finding a firm. If you know another firm, that's great too. We can interview companies to.
Firm to do what? I'm not clear what it is you're asking for.
I'd like to start looking for the city manager first. Let's get a firm that help us get there.
Okay,
A law firm doesn't do that,
I understand
if that's what
that.
you're saying.
I understand. That's why I'm saying I don't want to go this direction first. I'd like to find a firm that
Like
can
Ralph,
help us.
you're looking like for Ralph Anderson or a recruiting firm?
A recruiting firm or firms to look at our city. Different departments. Well, I'll tell you what, Mr. Teague, I will find the firm. Don't worry. I will find the firm to come talk to us.
Recruitment firms don't come in and organize your city. They take from you what it is you want them to recruit for. A city manager
find a few
position, city
firms.
attorney position, whatever.
Okay. I will find a few firms and bring them forward to the council, to city manager, and we could have that discussion the next meeting.
Looking at? Are you asking that we recruit for a general manager? Or what? I don't get it. I just don't know what's going on. Are you looking to hire an attorney? Or?
Here's what I want to make something clear. What I don't want to do is jump to the city attorney first. I want to know what direction I'm going with city manager.
So do I.
And I want to know what other departments or how we can look at our city and see, do we need a full-time attorney? How do our departments run currently? How can we be more efficient? What is it we're looking for the future of our city? With that information,
the city council, we're supposed to determine that. That's what I'm saying. You know, we don't bring in people to I don't hire people to go through my agenda every Monday and tell me how to vote. Right? Do you? I
Mr.
don't.
Gomez, that's not the point. The point
Yes,
is this.
it is.
No,
It's
that's not.
exactly that.
There's a lot.
I don't hire anybody
that-
to make my decisions.
There's a lot of things happening in government. A lot of rules, a lot of laws that change. We need to be updated. HR, for an example, to find out that we have 4 people working through HR is probably not the best thing for our city. We should have somebody that, well, you said you helped in HR, and I think there's 2 or 3 other people that help out in HR.
I provide legal advice to HR. Nobody else is providing legal advice to anyone here but me.
Okay.
So I don't do recruitments. I don't do
I didn't say
hirings.
you did
I
recruitments.
provide legal advice in employment matters, which is what you want your city attorney to do.
Mr. Mayor, may I have something?
Yes, you may.
May I have say something? Thank you. I think that we already have, we had a motion and we seconded, and it was passed?
No, there was no vote
There was no vote?
on this item.
I
No.
thought it
On the
was-
direction, the one above we did.
Well, we had a motion and I seconded, then it was amended. I second the amendment, so then it
That was
didn't
a
pass.
vote to contract.
Pardon me? So it didn't pass.
Consider this one, yes.
Yeah.
That passed on the interim city
Yeah,
attorney.
on an interim basis.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to make sure I'm on the right path here. So, right now, we have that in place, and I think what we need to do, we can look at this. We have 6 months to evaluate and look how this is going to work. And yes, I agree, we need to focus on hiring a city manager and how that, what we expect to have in a city manager to accomplish the things to be done. And then we have 6 months to look at the attorney, whether we're going to keep it as a contracted or if we're going to move ahead and recruit for a full-time. We have that time. I mean, I think we need to focus on just one entity right now before getting all.
No, and I agree. I think we need to take that time to do it right.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we should approve anything right now, but I think that what I said was important because, Clint's leaving, he's going to be leaving in July, and we already took care, Stephanie's going to be going, and we already voted an interim for 6 months, so we need to focus on the city manager, what we're going to be looking at, what we're going to be doing.
I agree. So would you like to make a motion in that direction?
Pardon me?
Would you like to make a motion in that
Or
direction?
do we need a motion to direct?
That we'll just table this or this item?
Because there's no, we already voted on the interim
Yes.
for 6 months. So, and that's what we're going to be deciding on number 5. In terms of the city manager, I think that's something that we just have to make sure that, do we need a motion to, we know
No,
we're
the
going
o-
to hire a city manager.
No, that's not on the agenda. What was on the agenda was to
The
talk about
direction.
having an interim attorney, and then a discussion on the long-term approach for city attorney. And it sounds to me like there is no direction at this point on long-term city attorney, and that is something that you guys will take up, and we or staff or whoever will deal with that when you guys choose to have it dealt with.
Just to be clear, we hire the city attorney, right? So pretty much the hiring of a city manager really has nothing to do with the city attorney, correct? Or does the city attorney work for the city manager? Okay,
City
so
attorney
they're
by
both
ordinance
independent.
works directly for you.
Okay, so we wouldn't be looking at the city manager to be hiring or giving us advice on who to hire for city attorney. Thank you.
Just to be clear again, I want to make sure whoever we choose as city manager has the opportunity to help guide us in a direction that works for him so that he has the tools to succeed so that we all succeed. So thank you very much. Let's move on to item H.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I, J, and K, no items. Thank you. Is there a second for adjournment?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.